Okay, we are live. I should do a quick tweet, which I always forget.
True.
Maybe I'll be super prepared and actually link the live show. What a concept.
Ooh. Now that is fancy.
Yeah.
Sorry for the punny. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I think it was the echo of the...
Huh?
I think it was the echo of the live show. I don't think anyone was talking. Go ahead, Taylor.
Oh, damn. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I do that all the time.
I totally forgot to pause it. What's happening?
I do it every time.
What was I gonna say? Well, left my mind.
It was about the pun.
Oh yeah, sorry about the pun for the tweet. I for some reason couldn't come up with any like play specific like tweet, so I was like, I'm gonna go for the low hanging fruit here.
I love it.
I love it. I obviously did not know him personally, but I think Oscar Wilde would approve. Like at all times, he would say go for a pun.
Indeed. Ooh, okay.
Hi, Kelly. This is exciting. Yeah, I saw that you had read this recently, so this is good timing.
Love it when that happens.
Works out beautifully. Okay, so I sent the tweet. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and start with introductions and kind of ease into things as we tend to do. So I'm going to have you guys give a quick intro of yourself and your channel, which we do every time, because there might be new people. You don't know. And I want you guys to highlight an anticipated release that you have for this year. So a book you're really excited about that comes out this year. Maybe it already came out. So yeah, just something you're excited about. So I don't know who we normally start with. Julia, would you like to go? Since you said You're ready.
It doesn't matter. Yep, so I'm Julia. My channel is Shakespeare and Such. I have not been great about doing any videos that aren't book club related, so sorry. But I do have an announcement video coming soon that Kara may or may not already know exactly what it is, and Taylor, you'll know soon enough. But yeah, so that's something to look forward to, and I do have plans to start making videos again. Life is just busy. I mean, I'm living with my parents for a week, so yeah, definitely not filming anything right now. But yeah, but I talk about all kinds of different books, a lot of historical fiction lately, and a lot of classics lately, which I'm okay with. I try to read more broadly, but those two are like my favorites, and I'm not mad that they're kind of taking all my attention right now.
Yeah.
Yes, and yes, Nana, an announcement.
Yes.
And then for a book that I am excited for, I'm going to highlight one that I haven't heard anyone talk about, that I like totally found randomly on NetGalley, and I was so excited when I got approved for it. It's actually coming out really soon on March 15th, and it is called Take Her Down by Lauren Emily Whalen, and it is a queer YA retelling of Julius Caesar.
Ooh.
I am very intrigued. Obviously, any Shakespeare retelling makes me go, okay, I'm listening. But yeah, high school drama clicks. I think the Brutus and the Caesar characters are both like running for student body president. And then someone goes missing, and drama and relationships and teenagers. So
Yeah.
What's it called again?
It's called Take Her Down.
I may be adding that to my TBR.
For sure. And I'll go back and link these afterwards for everyone watching back later.
And I guess I can go. So I'm Taylor from Page Screen Taylor, and I know Julia mentioned that she was bad at uploading, but take that and multiply it by 6. uploaded, I think, since the pandemic started. Funny how some things correlate. Like, usually I tend to read a lot of romance, classics, and I do like to pick up a good adult sci-fi and fantasy from time to time. But I'll read almost anything. But those are just what I gravitate towards. And I am cheating on this a bit, but I don't keep up with new releases all the time. So this was released January 18th, 2022, and it's Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? Huzband. And it's about this girl of Nigerian descent, and her aunties always ask her where her husband is, and she like is tired of explaining to them, like, you know, stop asking me this. I don't need a husband to be fulfilled. But when her cousin's wedding is coming up, she decides maybe it's time to start looking for a husband. So she starts using like spreadsheets and a very like analytical approach to finding the perfect husband to take to her cousin's wedding. And it sounds really funny.
It sounds so good.
Yeah, I've like heard pretty good things about that one, and I just love that title so much. Like, it really, I mean, what it says on the tin, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Kara. My channel is obviously Wild Book Garden. I read a lot of different things. I think my most read genres are fantasy and historical fiction, but also I'm reading a lot of like contemporary and nonfiction. Obviously I read classics, and I am very loud about how important it is for people to read different kinds of books, including age ranges. And as I've started explaining recently, I do read adult books, but I don't talk about it nearly as much because they do not need the help. I feel like there's not the same like level of judgment associated with adult books. So I do read them. I just don't mention it as often. And then as for my anticipated release, I am also cheating at my own question. Because I'm talking about a book that's like pretty far into a series, which I only found out was coming out like it's coming out like next month because it's an indie release, so the announcements tend to be a lot later. But it's called Beguiling Birthright by Melissa McShane. But the one I'm going to talk about is the first book, which is Burning Bright, which I read last year and really loved. It's a historical fantasy that's kind of an alternate. Well, it's definitely alternate history because there's magic during the Napoleonic Wars. And our main character is an extraordinary scorcher, which means she doesn't just have like fire abilities. She has like superpowered fire abilities. And she's the only one in England for like 100 years or something. And when her father is like trying to force her into a marriage she doesn't want, she's like, okay, I'm just going to go join the Navy. Bye. And she does. And it's amazing. It's like really, really satisfying to see her be just like so like OP and confident. Like I love it. And yeah, I really like the writing. The world building is great. Like if you've been looking to get into more indie fantasy, I would really recommend the series. Like it's good fantasy by itself, but specifically if you want to start reading more indie authors, I would really recommend it. Characterization is great, like strong female characters in lots of different ways. I've read the second book as well and really enjoyed it. So this one is like pretty far into the series. But am I going to be pre-ordering it? Probably. So, yeah, so that's my pick for that one. And like I said, I will go back and link all of these in the description. Taylor and Julia are already in the description, so please go follow them if you're not already. I can't imagine that you're not, but just in case. Okay, so before we get into the actual discussion, we're going to go over content warnings like we always do. The only ones that we really have for this play are discussions or references to like infidelity and cheating and like sexism and misogyny. Other than that, I think we should be pretty safe. And this is obviously the discussion for Lady Windermere's Fan by Oscar Wilde, which my book does not say on the cover, but I promise it's in this collection. Yeah.
I don't even have a physical copy.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So going to start a little bit differently rather than doing our overall thoughts first. I wanted to ask you guys, obviously we read The Picture of Dorian Gray for this book club. But other than that, I wanted to ask you guys about previous experience with Oscar Wilde's works and if you had any expectations about this play specifically. So let's start with Taylor.
So the only, other than The Picture of Dorian Gray, the only other Oscar Wilde thing I had read before this was The Importance of Being Earnest, which I really liked. Mm-hmm. It's really funny. It was a lot of fun. It's been like almost 10 years since I've read it, so I should probably definitely get on rereading that. What was the other part of the question?
If you had any expectations about this play specifically.
I had absolutely no expectations going in because I had never even heard of this play until you brought it up, Kara. The only thing I expected was that there would be a fan involved.
Yeah, there sure was. There sure was.
And
There
boy, did it
really was a fan.
Okay. Julia, so previous experience with Oscar Wilde and any expectations that you had for this play, even if they're like vague, like you expected it to be kind of like something else.
Yeah, mine are actually the exact same. So I have read The Importance of Being Earnest. I was trying to look at it on Goodreads because I remember I had tried to read it for Victober, like maybe 2 years ago. And I had it like in a bind up of I think it was like all his plays or most of his plays. And it had Lady Windermere's fan in there. And my intent was to read them all, but I just like didn't finish the volume. So I basically only read the one play. So yeah, I guess my expectation was it would be a lot more like fun in that vein than sort of on the Dorian Gray side of things, which now having read more of his plays, I'm like, is that the weird, like out of character thing? Like all his plays are like so silly and goofy. And then this one's like death, murder, selling your soul.
It was his goth phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was not pleasantly surprised, but just pleased that I liked it as much as I liked my first experience reading a play of his.
Good, good. Okay, so as for me, which I have mentioned before, this is my favorite thing I've read from Oscar Wilde so far. So this is your reminder that I am absolutely not unbiased. I really love Lady Windermere's fan, and also Oscar Wilde is in my channel name, so I'm kind of a fan. I have a mug that has one of the quotes from the play on it. I actually used this quote for our first introduction when we started Past It Classics. We had to do those like introduction cards and pick a favorite quote from a classic, and the one I used was from this play. So I'm kind of a big fan. And as far as other things I've read from him, obviously we read The Picture of Dorian Gray together. I have also read several other plays by him. I've read The Importance of Being Earnest, An Ideal Husband, A Woman of No Importance. I have read Salome, which is a very weird play. And I've also read De Profundis, which is the letter that he wrote from jail, which I highly recommend. It is like horribly difficult to read in places, but it's a really beautiful piece of writing. So anyway, I've read a lot of Oscar Wilde, and I had not reread this play before this time. So I was really excited to do it and a little bit nervous to see if I still loved it as much. But that leads me into our next question. So overall thoughts, if you want to share your rating on the play, I would love to hear that. I think, did we start with Taylor? Did we start with you last time?
We started with me last time. So Julia.
Okay, so Julia, go ahead.
I really enjoyed it. Goodreads is pulling up very slowly, but I'm fairly confident in saying I gave it 4.5 stars. I'm trying to double check. Goodreads doesn't want to tell me.
Yeah.
No, I gave it 4.8 stars, like almost a perfect 5. Okay,
nice.
This is where my averages come into play because it's like, it's really close to being perfect for me. It was just, I think, a little bit of the character stuff. We'll get into it, but I found there were times where we were lingering on certain characters that like didn't really matter as much. And I was like, we could have like cut this scene down by half, I really think. But overall, yeah, like the characters, the themes, the writing itself, perfecto. Love it.
Nice. Taylor.
So this one was a tough one for me because I did really enjoy it. It just took me a while to realize where the play was going.
Yes.
So the first act and the last act, I definitely really enjoyed. I thought it was really good. And the middle acts, like, I think what you were saying, Julia, there were just some characters that I felt didn't really matter and they were given too much time. And I was like, oh my God, like, let's move on. I want to hear about the affair.
Get to the good stuff.
But I think I am sort of wavering between a 3.5 and a 4-star, leaning more towards the 4-star because I did really like where we ended up in the play, and like the themes that were overall discussed, I really, really liked. It's just, it took a little while for me to sort of get to that, not realization, but like get to enjoying those themes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like there's a lot of payoff for this one, but there is a point where you're like, where are we going with this?
The entire first act, I was like,
I
don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah, which I almost wonder, like, I'm trying to think to the other comedies I've read from him, if that's something that he tends to do, is like, oh, a bunch of like shallow people talking, and then it's like, wham, he like gets to the emotional stuff like right at the end.
That is something that I think. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to.
No. I just wanted to mention that Kelly mentioned that Salome is a tragedy, which it definitely is. She says if you want more of his death and murder, that's a good one to pick. Go ahead, Taylor. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I do wonder if this is one of those examples of plays that I think would be much better with all of the extra characters on a stage than it is reading them, because you can have all of that overlapping conversations and it moves a lot quicker, I think. And delivery also helps a lot. So I am wondering, like, if that is a little less tedious in the play, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Can I interject there and say, this is just me promoting reading Kate Hennick's plays, but she has like specific punctuation where she's like, if I forget what it is, it's either like a dash or like a backslash or whatever, but it's like, if I do that, that means those two lines are like overlapping, so like this person is directed to talk over the person in front of them, and I'm like, that's so brilliant. Like, I love that.
I've seen playwrights do that. I think it makes it much more realistic. Okay, so kind of my next question about the play as a whole is, we talked about how it's not really clear where things are going. I want to know, did you guys predict what the main secret was? Like who Mrs. Erlin was and what was going on there? Like, if you want to share any thoughts you had about that. I'll say that like the first time, I'm trying to remember because I read this play a while ago. I think I had some ideas about what was going on, but I don't remember being like, aha, I knew it. So, any thoughts on that?
I'm trying to go back, but I think at one point either Lord Windermere or Mrs. Erlin like mentioned to each other like about her being Lady Windermere's mother, like early on in the play. So I thought that was an interesting twist. And I probably wouldn't have been able to figure it out if that line hadn't been there until maybe like Act 3 when they're in Lord Darlington's home.
Yeah, when she's like, oh no, I have to save her.
Yeah. Or even when she asks for a picture of her and her son.
Oh,
that moment was. Yeah. So Julia, did your mom senses tingle? Like, what was
well, the funny thing is, because I read an ebook edition from my library, and when I downloaded it on Hoopla, I just kind of like, you have to like scroll down to like the little download thing, so the little synopsis is right there. And I think in how quickly I scanned by it, I had misread what it said, which, first of all, why did they put that crux of the play in the synopsis? That's very lame, if you ask me. They shouldn't have done that. But I mistook it and thought that she was her husband's mother, like it was Lady Windermere's mother-in-law. And so the whole first act, I was like, why are we keeping this a secret? Just tell her I'm with my mom. Like, I was so confused.
Yeah.
So, once I put that puzzle back together in the correct way, I was like, this makes a lot more sense. So I was, accidentally misdirected in that way. But I don't think I would have guessed it otherwise. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good point about like, depending on the edition you get, like, because mine, because it's a bind up, it doesn't get too into the synopsis for this one. So I didn't have that prior knowledge. But yeah, like it's weird to spoil such a big reveal in the synopsis. But
That's
I
such
also
a
think
tiny work of writing.
yes, and I also think it was interesting, Taylor, like you said, that the play kind of spoils itself pretty early on. Like the first one or two acts, I think you don't know what's going on, but then there's that conversation between the characters where like you know before like the main characters do who this woman is. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into our character discussions. I think it makes the most sense to start with Lady Windermere herself. So what did you guys think of her? This is one of our vague character questions where it's like, let's just talk. Let's just talk.
Listen, I kind of love Lady Windermere, and I want someone to do this play near me so I can audition for her. Kara, I'm sure you relate to this feeling.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I think she's just so interesting because she has like really strong convictions, but she also grows a lot as a character, but doesn't like lose her convictions. She just adapts them, you know? Like, I don't know. I love the way she said everything. I love how like sure of things she was. And even when she was like, it even took a while for her to be convinced that her husband was cheating on her, even though all these people were like, we have this evidence, we know this, and we know this. And she's like, but he wouldn't. Like, no. And then eventually, like, it ate away at her. But yeah, I don't know. I like her a lot.
Yeah.
I'm never good at describing why I like a character. Only why I hate a character.
Yeah. Taylor, what'd you think?
So I really liked her as a character. And I really did sympathize with her for having probably the strangest 24 hours of her life.
What a roller coaster.
Right? It's her birthday. So I do appreciate her going through that wild time, no pun intended, and coming out of it okay. But you know, I really enjoyed like how trusting she was of her spouse and how everyone was like, yeah, you really shouldn't like your partner. And she was like, well, I like him. I think he's all right. And that honestly made me so sad when she thought he was cheating on her. I was like, girl, I get why you went for the other guy. Maybe not the right decision considering you have a kid, but like, I get it.
Yeah, I know when everyone, like when she would tell people that like she loves her husband and the reaction was like, oh, honey. It's like, it's really sad. Yeah, I really love Lady Windermere as well. I really feel for her. And I was also really struck this time. I don't know if I just didn't notice this the first time. We know I'm like famously bad at keeping track of character ages. She is really young.
She's
like 21, right? That's when she's coming of age. So I think that's when they came of age. And it's like she's already married and she has a baby. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like her sense of still figuring herself out, like, and how she feels about things, and like Julia, like you said, her convictions, and how like she does stick to them, but she does it in different ways by the end of the play. And like I don't know, I think she was really well written. Like I really understood why she did the things she did, even though there were times where it's like, I think this is a bad idea, but I understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Also, Hannah's mentioned she does seem to forget about her child for most of the play. Yeah, it's like mentioned at the beginning and the end, and other than that, nobody like really thinks about it.
Like, you didn't even find out the kid's name until like the end.
Well, it's especially like at first I didn't question, like I was like, the baby's like not that relevant to the story.
Right.
But then when you get to the piece where it's like history repeating itself and how her mother left her as an infant, I'm like, we need to care more about this baby. Like, you almost got abandoned by your mother.
Yeah.
Sorry, Julia, I just saw your reply to Hannah.
It's very Gatsby, you know.
I had forgotten Daisy Buchanan had a child until you said that in the comments. So I agree.
One of my favorite Kate Beaton comics is like a little Great Gatsby spoof. and Daisy's like lounging on the couch with like a cigarette or whatever. I think she's like talking to Tom, and he's like, but what about the baby? And then she's like, what baby? And then the next panel, it's like panned way back, and she's like sitting on the baby on the couch. She's just like, what baby? It's so good.
Yeah, that checks out.
That is now canon.
I
Yeah,
need to find that.
canon. Okay, so let's talk about Lord Windermere. He's one of those characters where like he's important for plot reasons, but like I don't know, we don't get nearly as much, I think, characterization for him in my opinion. But did we have any thoughts about him?
I didn't particularly like him. Sorry.
Taylor's like, it's a no from me.
He kept calling her child, and I'm like, that's your wife.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
And especially with her being so young already, I'm like, I already feel weird about the fact that you are married and you have a kid, but you're having a coming of age party. Like, why do we have to draw attention to this?
I'm here like, how old are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know. I understand the secret he was trying to keep, and I understand he was trying to do a nice thing for Mrs. Erlin.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he could have talked to his wife in a way that would have assuaged her doubts.
Yeah.
And also kept that secret. Something like, hey, I met this woman. She's down on her luck. I'm going to be helping her out.
Yes.
You know, and like at least that would provide some sort of explanation instead of sneaking around and going to this lady's house and paying her secret money. And then he's shocked when she's like, hey, I think you have a side chick.
Yeah, I know. I kept thinking that the whole time. I was like, I understand why he's keeping it a secret, but he did it in the most suspicious way possible. Like
his secret like checkbook.
Yeah. Like just
checkbook.
Everything he did was like, are you trying to give your wife a complex? Like because even if he couldn't give her specifics, like you were saying, Taylor, like you'd think he could have at least been like, hey, this is going to look like I'm having an affair. Please trust me. It's not like that. This woman is connected to somebody who, I don't know what he could have said. Like, you know, like a friend of a friend. I know how it looks. I'll explain everything later, you know, like whatever. But instead he's just like, just trust me. And she's like, hey, it looks like you're having an affair. And he's like, just trust me. Like there's like no communication.
She's just a woman I send money to and go on secret meetings with.
Yeah, he's like, also she's really beautiful and everyone really likes her, but like, you know, we're just friends. It's okay.
There's nothing weird about it.
Nothing weird. Yeah. Also, she come to our house tonight? It's not weird, I promise.
I know you think we're having an affair, but why don't you invite her to your birthday party?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite moments, honestly, when she's like, if she comes to this house, I will hit her with my fan. Whoa, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Julia, did you have any thoughts on Lord Windermere?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't my favorite. The child thing was also very distracting to me. Every time he called her child, I was like, I don't even care if you have like a 15-year age gap. Just call her wife. Please just call her wife if you're not going to call her by her Christian name.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I didn't have like a huge issue with him. I'm sure we'll talk about this in a minute anyways, but I was very intrigued by Lord Darlington.
Yeah,
so
he's next.
Inclined to care about Lord Windermere. I was like, I want to see where this goes. What's this about?
Yeah. Like he's more compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, because Lord Windermere, Freudian slip. One of the things that I think made him harder for me to like or to sympathize with is that, which I think it's supposed to happen, is like by the end of the play, he gets like more close-minded, and the other characters get less. And it's interesting because, like with Lady Windermere, some of the things that he does, it's like, oh, this is not the best choice, but I see why you're making it. Like we've discussed how he is like the worst at communication and keeping a secret in a way that doesn't look super suspicious. But it's like, I understand why he did it. But then we get to a point where it's like, he's not making decisions that are sympathetic anymore. I don't know if that even makes sense.
That makes sense.
I couldn't work out how old he's supposed to be. Yeah, like I get the feeling there's an age gap, but not too much. But it's like, why do you keep calling her child then? It was weird and unnecessary.
I do wonder if it's like Ibsen's dollhouse sort of thing.
I thought of the dollhouse a lot while reading this. Yeah. Hannah also said the fact that they thought he was having an affair with Mrs. Erlin, who must be around 20 years older than his wife. Yeah, I thought, which is also interesting because the way that it's like a 50-year-old man in this time period could marry like a 20-year-old and people would be like, reasonable, that's fine. So it's really hard to tell how old the men are because it's like you could be like her same age, you could be like 30 years older and nobody would care.
But to be fair too, I think Mr. Lynn literally even says at one point, she's like, I've never divulged myself to be older than 29 or 30. So
it's like 29 with there's pink shades. Like she's like, that's my color. Yeah.
Something that I didn't like about Lord Windermere is it sort of goes back to him like keeping a secret in the most suspicious way. When he decides he doesn't approve of Mrs. Erlin, he's like, he tells Lady Windermere she is never to set foot in this house. She is evil. She is a she-beast. And Lady Windermere's like, okay, why? Because she did me a solid. And he's like, she's evil. And it's like, could you at least like make up a vague reason?
Yeah.
Why you think she's evil? Like, otherwise you're just like
I know. He makes no sense as a character in some places. Like which I think is intentional, but
the more we talk about him, the less I like him. Because now in my brain, I'm just like, and in the beginning, like he wasn't even trying to help her out of the goodness of his heart. Like he was just straight up getting blackmailed, you know? So like there's not much redeemable here. Like, sorry.
And like
I guess you love your wife, but that's about it.
Like he had selfless reasons in a way for doing some of the things he did, but it's like we realized by the end of the play that you have to earn his I don't know what's it called, like his benefit of the doubt. It's like you have to earn it, so it's not really giving someone the benefit of the doubt, which is interesting considering what he went through with his wife in the last day. You'd think he'd be a little more understanding of like sometimes things aren't what they look like.
He's also like super controlling too, especially with like Mrs. Erlin. Like he tells Lady Windermere like, oh, well, she has to come to your birthday ball. And then at the end, he's like, yeah, you can't see her ever again. And, you know, even though she wants to, he's like, no, I'm going to make this decision for you. And we're not going to allow you to sort of see this woman who you really like now. I don't know. It sort of like got on my nerves.
Yeah, especially because like he didn't moves. What's that?
Just classic husband moves, telling your wife what to do.
Yeah, and like especially because like you guys were saying, it's like he didn't even give reasons for it. He was kind of like, I'm in charge, she can't come in to the house ever again, even though I literally did the exact opposite yesterday. Like that's in the past, move on. Okay, so let's talk about Lord Darlington, because he's an interesting one. I think Julia's ready.
I think his name was very aptly chose, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked the dynamic between him and Lady Windermere. Like, it was very fun to read, where he's just like, oh, you're so charming, you're this, you're that. And she's like, well, if you really liked me, you wouldn't say all these nice things about me. Don't lie to me. It's like, but you are. I'm sure you're beautiful and all this stuff. But yeah, it's just like, the clash of their personalities was like very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all I have to say initially. Someone continue.
I thought he was, I guess I'm not as fond of him as you are, Julia. I don't dislike him, and I do like the role he plays in the play. I feel a little bad for him because he just keeps like, okay, Lady Windermere doesn't want to run away with me. Oh, now she does. Oh, I guess she doesn't anymore. He really, he seems like a nice enough guy, and I know he likes Lady Windermere, but I think at this point I'm just rooting for Lady Windermere to stay away from men.
I will add, I'm not rooting for her to leave her husband. That's not like the storyline I wanted. However, there is just like a nice inherent romanticism there of
Yes.
like, marry me or I'm leaving forever. Goodbye. Like, wow, okay, you meant it.
Yeah. I also have a soft spot for Lord Darlington. There's just something about that like depressing star-crossed lover boy that warms my heart. Yeah, and I appreciate that even though he was very dramatic, he's like, you don't have to run away with me, but if you don't, I'm leaving forever. I do appreciate that he didn't try, at least if I'm remembering correctly, he wasn't like actively trying to push Lady Windermere into like doing something. Like he was trying to convince her, like he's like, look, if your husband doesn't love you, I love you. I'll like run away with you right now. Like, let's go. We'll be happy. But for the most part, I don't feel like he was super pushy about it, which I feel like can sometimes happen. Your husband is cheating on you and you've just found out about it literally today. Run away with me right now. Yeah, I mean, he was quick. He was quick on the draw,
but he wasn't pressuring.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact that he's clearly been in love with her for a long time. So for him, this wasn't a snap decision. I also, something too, is that I get the feeling that he and Lady Windermere are much closer in age. And I feel like you can see that in how they kind of, like, I don't want to say immature, because they're not immature, but like the way they interact with each other and like with the world and like this particular kind of like romantic, I don't know, romanticization of their relationship. It's like
the idealism of everything.
Yes. And like that also won me over a lot more because I just feel like they understand each other better than Lady Windermere and her husband do. I mean, like you, Julia, I wasn't like rooting for her to leave her husband necessarily, but I like that plot line with Lord Darlington, and I do feel like he genuinely loved her.
I agree.
Yeah. I like the mess that it is.
I love
Taylor's like, yeah.
I love the one line she says where, I know we're going to share quotes later, but I love when she says, I like you very much. You know that. But I shouldn't like you at all if I thought you were what most other men are. Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so the last kind of main character is, of course, Mrs. Erlin. So how did we feel about her?
I thought she was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a very weak way to put it, but like there's something that I really like about having a character who divorced her husband to leave with another man. That man left her and she's still not really interested in like being a mother or like I guess like apologizing for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like I said, I found very interesting, and I do like that she didn't reveal herself really to Lady Windermere at the end of the play. I thought that was sort of consistent with her character, who, like, you can tell that she loves her daughter, like she wants the picture and stuff, but she doesn't really seem to like being a mother.
Yeah,
which I thought was really cool to put in this play.
Yeah, like I thought that was an interesting choice too. It's like unusual because they don't have this big reconciliation at the end. It's like she still leaves. It's like she kind of even says this. It's like she had this like one selfless moment of like, I will sacrifice myself for my child, but that doesn't mean I can like be a mom like forever, you know? Which I thought was really interesting. So, Julia.
I went on quite the journey with her. Okay. I was not a fan initially. I mean, obviously, because at first you're like, is this woman coming in here to home wreck? Like, you know.
Yeah.
But even then, upon meeting her, I was like, I don't really know. The vibes are sketchy. I don't really get it. And then like learning about who she was and what she had done, I was like, okay, yeah, still not really a fan. Like, you came here to the husband of your abandoned daughter and you're blackmailing him for money. Like, way to not win me over. But then as the play goes on and we get that scene at like Darlington's place and all that she does for her daughter, because there's that one specific line where Lord Windermere is like, oh, you don't know what it means to be a mother. You have to not be selfish and sacrifice and da-da-da. And I was like, she doesn't, like, she's not actively mothering her child / adult child. But she does sacrifice for her in the end. And I was like, okay, well, wait a second. This is kind of nice. and the unselfishness it took to like keep that secret and not be like, you know, oh, hey, I'm your mom. Because if she did say that, then Lady Windermere, of course, would have been like, we're not kicking her out. Like, let her hang out with us, you know? But yeah. I think she's a really strong character and a very complex one. And I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I like that it wasn't, you find out what she's really doing and like suddenly everything she does is like she's a good guy.
Yeah.
Because I remembered from the first time I read the play, I remembered what she did at the end, that like big selfless act. And I didn't remember the other stuff. So when I get to the part where she's like, speaking of doing like keeping a secret in the most suspicious way, she's sure acting like she's having an affair with her daughter's husband.
Oh yeah.
And like the fact too that she's blackmailing them, you know, like she's clearly not so worried about her daughter's reputation that she's not willing to risk it for money and all of this. And I was like, wait, it's like I remember being really sympathetic for like towards you. Like what happened? And then you get to the end and it's like, oh, but it's still not easy. It's and she even says she's like I'm not gonna suddenly become a like selfless person. She's like, but I did this one thing and I'm gonna hold on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Hannah said she has that monologue about how she doesn't want her child to make the same mistake she did. So she clearly not only knows she made a mistake, but also feels it emotionally on some level, even if it's not enough to actually rectify it. Yeah, it's like she's willing to sacrifice herself to stop her daughter from doing the same thing, even though she's not like, she almost doesn't want to admit to herself that she's being selfless, you know? Like she's like, apparently I have a heart. I don't want to talk about it. Which I just find very endearing in characters in general.
Yeah. Yeah. She was very fascinating to read about. For sure.
Yeah. Any other characters, or if we want to go back to any of the ones we've already talked about, or talk about new characters before we get into some of the other questions?
I just want to give a shout out to Agatha.
Yes, I was literally about to pull that.
I would love to play her. Yes, mother. Yes, mother. Yeah. Yes, mother.
But she's like, oh, look at the sunset. And she's like, okay.
and then she comes back from that one interaction with the guy who like proposed to her, and she's like, Agatha, did you accept his proposal? Yes, mother. Like, yeah. That's just all she says, and I'm obsessed. She's so funny to me.
Yeah.
That was definitely like my favorite like joke in the entire play, just the running joke for going, yes, ma.
Oh yeah, that's it, mama.
Mama, yeah. Her mom was really funny too. She's like that very classic Oscar Wilde character where like she's high society and she's completely ridiculous and everything she says contradicts themselves, but she has good manners, so like nobody cares. Like when she's talking about those two girls, when she's spreading the rumors about like Lord Windermere and Mrs. Erlin, and she's like, well, I heard from these two very nice girls who I know, and she's like, and they never gossip, but they were looking out their window and they saw him, so of course they told everyone. And it's like...
I love, what's her name? The Duchess of Berwick. I was like, oh my god, spreading more mess. You're like the Love is Blind producers. If people haven't seen season 2, it's messy. Yeah. Those were...
Yes, mama.
Agatha, are you moving to Australia? No, we're not doing that. Oh my god.
That's so good. Yeah. But I feel like it was the male side characters where I was like, I got the gist of your conversation. Like, we did not need to go on for so long. Just like that scene before they actually like go into Darlington's place. And it's like Lord Windermere and the guy who's trying to marry Mrs. Erlin and like the two other guys. Yeah, they had like the dumbest name. And I was just like I got the commentary. Like, I'm ready to move on.
Yeah. I do appreciate that like Oscar Wilde was a male writer who was writing these, and he's like, men gossip just as much as women, like
Mhm.
if not
I
more.
do like that.
I appreciated that.
Yeah. I just
And
wish
about
their
similar
gossip was a
stuff,
little
too.
more interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Fair point.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're fine. I think I was done. We were just talking about like how they gossip like the same, if not more than women, and also like about the same stuff. Like,
yeah.
like women get a bad rap for it's like, oh, you're always talking about who's like dating who or whatever, and it's like that's exactly what the men are talking about. They're just smoking while they do it. Like,
yeah, and there's more misogyny involved.
Yeah, it's like the same, but sprinkle misogyny on top. Okay, so we've, I think, kind of talked about this a little bit already. Actually, you know what? I'm going to mix it up. We're going to throw in a new question because we've all read The Importance of Being Earnest.
Yes.
How do you think this play compares to that one? And also, if you, like, what would you call this play? Like, what would the genre be, do you think? Or, like, a description for it?
So I personally can't remember too much about The Importance of Being Earnest. I will say there is some, like, they both have to do a lot with like misunderstandings, especially among like the upper class, and how they're all gossiping, but they talk around each other and they have like these secrets. So I sort of see that comparison. I would really say that these were either a dramedy or maybe like a comedy of manners, sort of like a Jane Austen sort of genre.
Yeah.
That's my best guess.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel like they have the same like social satire vibe of like we're just making fun of how like society says we do this and this, and then like he excuse me, he like gives it this little absurd like, oh, but then because of that we're supposed to do like this happens, and then it's just like goofy and silly. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think the subtitle for Importance of Being Earnest is like a trivial comedy for serious people or something like that.
I love that.
Which I think is very appropriate. And like, it's weird to me that these plays are both considered comedies because to me, they feel very different. Like his whole thing with The Importance of Being Earnest is like, in contrast to a lot of his other work, he's like, absolutely no social commentary or meaning of any kind, unless it's that rich people are ridiculous. Which I would like, I personally feel like the very fact that the play is so silly and it's about these wealthy, high-class people is itself social commentary, but like he wasn't like writing it like for a message, you know?
That's fair. Yeah.
Whereas like this one, it doesn't feel like the strict definition of comedy is like it doesn't really end like one. Because it kind of ends on something really bittersweet. And I don't know, it just like it's complicated to me. Yeah, I agree. Earnest is more unequivocally a comedy. This definitely has more profound things to say.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that's one of the reasons why, like, I love Importance of Being Earnest, but I think the reason this play is my favorite is because it has the really clever dialogue, but it also has like more of an emotional heart, I think. Like that's one of the things I just really love about his plays in general is the ones that are comedies. It's like they still have that emotional punch. Yes, the dialogue definitely. He has like a very particular style. Yeah. Okay, so to quote one of our other Past It Classics picks, this is the "Can you forgive her?" section. Like, because something that I think is really interesting about this play is like the questionable decisions everybody makes. Like, so I just wanted to ask you guys, I guess kind of this is like all of our main characters is like, do you like, can you forgive her? It's like, do you understand, would you have been okay reading like Lady Windermere leaving her husband? Like, would you understand why she did that, even if you don't think she should have done it? Do you think Lord Windermere was justified in keeping this secret? Do you think Lord Darlington was justified in trying to get a married woman to run away with him? And Mrs. Erlin and the whole blackmail thing. So like any of our main characters, I just kind of want to talk about like, I don't know. That's just one of the things I thought was really interesting about this play is like, it made me really think about like, am I okay with this? Like with this, like, do I understand why this is happening?
Yeah, that's a good point because like, there's definitely a difference in between like can I see why this character did this? And am I okay with they did that for that reason?
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of things to consider here.
So I guess to sum it up, the question would be like, would you think this action was justified? So not saying like, I wish that Lady Windermere had run away with Lord Darlington, but like if that had happened, would we be discussing it and being like, yeah, I understand why she did that. That makes sense to me.
I mean, for me, both of the two, or assuming younger characters, I think they were both justified in their actions because to them, as far as they could perceive, as far as they were told and had evidence to, yes, she was being cheated on, and this is how they were planning on moving forward, respectively, considering that information. For Wyndham, questionable there. Again. I mean, I understand that like he didn't want to tell his wife the full truth so that she would have that like stigma of her mother's actions on her. But I think, you know, like she was a pretty upright woman. I think he could have been like, hey, this is a charity case we're taking on. Like, let's help this eccentric society lady out of her luck. Like, I think maybe should have been like, oh, okay. And then for Miss Erlin, for me, it's so tough. She's the toughest one. She's the most morally gray. I think overall, okay. I think all of her actions except the blackmail are justified to me. That's like one step above.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Especially because she knows from experience how unforgiving society is of things like this. And so for her to be like holding that over Lord Windermere and his wife, like so she can get money. I mean, she really didn't have any way of getting money. So in that sense, I understand. Like, I mean, she was trying to marry well, but it's not like she could go and get a job because she was a fallen woman, but she wasn't that low class that she needed to work, you know. Like that would have been considered even less acceptable for her to do that. So I get that she didn't have a lot of options, but yeah, like that's the thing that gets me about her too, is that she knows how bad it would have been, and she was still willing, for a while at least, she was willing to risk that. I guess we don't know, like maybe she was bluffing, you know, like maybe she wouldn't have done it, and she didn't know that she wouldn't have done it until she was confronted with seeing her daughter ruined, and then she's like, I can't do this. No, that's not what I wanted to happen.
Yeah. But I would say, I thought,
sorry, go ahead.
Taylor.
No, go ahead.
The idea of the blackmail was like, oh, hey, like, you know, take care of me so I don't reveal this horrible secret about your wife. And then it's like, well, I thought you also like didn't want to ruin your daughter's life. So like you do want to do it or you don't want to do it. It's like mixed signals.
Yeah. I feel like with Lady Windermere's decision to leave Lord Darlington, like understanding that this play takes place over the course of 24 hours, I'm like, listen, I know you're Lady Windermere. I know you're upset that your husband is cheating on you with this MILF, but
we're gonna bring it back at every live show. There's always gonna be a MILF.
But like she does have a kid, and it's one of those things that like knowing how Victorian society was at this time and didn't look too favorably upon women who were divorced, and oftentimes they wouldn't even get custody of their kid, or no one would want her to see her kid. But also if she's sort of in between a rock and a hard place, sort of like she stays with a cheater and just hates the man she's married to, but she gets to see her kid, or she goes off with this hot guy and maybe lives a great life somewhere, but she doesn't see her kid. So like I feel like it's not a decision one should make in a couple of hours.
No.
But I do get sort of like the hasty, like, well, you know what? Fine, this marriage is over. You get your side piece. I'm gonna run off with mine.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to acquire a side piece and then run off with it.
Let me obtain
my side piece. Yeah. Yeah. Like the whole time I was reading it, I was like, grab your baby, like just, you know, like take your kid. Baby's like 6 months old. I mean, I guess that like she's used to having a lot of like servants care for the child probably, but I'm proceeding under the assumption that Lord Darlington is genuine and he does actually care about her and will take care of her, because I feel like he is, like, from what we know of him, I think he's sincere. And it's like, if he does really love her, he would be willing for her to do that. So I was just like, why not take the third option, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, she'd have to, like, basically run away from England and probably live abroad somewhere where they didn't know that she wasn't married. But, like, I think one thing, too, that made me understand why she was doing it is I found her description, like, when she's talking about, like, picturing her life of, like, misery, like, watching somebody who she thought loved her and now doesn't. And, like, it's like, she even says, she's like, the whole time they've been married now is tainted, because she's thinking about, like, well, did he not love me this whole time? Like, I think the writing of that was really, really good. And I understand why that would make her like, I can't face that for the rest of my life, so I need to do something. But yeah, it's like, why wouldn't you take your kid with you?
That's what I'm saying, because I'm assuming if she's running away from her husband, like, you're not just being like, darling, I want a divorce and I would like the child, please. Like, you're out of here. You're moving to, like, Germany or wherever. Like, I would have just scooped up that baby and been like, hey, Lord Darlington. I mean, it would have made it a lot harder when she realized her mistake to sneak out of there with a baby in arms.
Right.
But
perhaps the best that she didn't have a child with her. Anna said, I wouldn't forgive Lady Windermere for running away so fast without considering her child or really thinking it through. But I think a lot of the blame for that would have also been Lord Darlington's. Yeah, I think he definitely had not thought through all the implications. I think, like, his intentions were good, but I think they would have needed to have a little bit more planning than, like, come with me right now.
it was rash.
And Hannah was agreeing with you, Taylor. I think the part where you're saying, I think what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I'm behind on comments.
I guess the only thing that I think wouldn't work out with the idea of her taking her baby and running away with Lord Darlington's is there's still this, like, repeat of the past where one kid is denied one of their parents. This time their father. Like, Lord Darlington would be a stand-in dad, but also, like, I mean, we don't really know much about Lord Windermere as a father because rich Victorians didn't really acknowledge their children until they could have a conversation. But yeah, she is really stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I mean, it's both. It's hard for me to sympathize with someone who would leave their kid, but also I very much sympathize with someone who can't leave a terrible marriage, theoretically, if he were cheating on her.
Yeah. And it is, I don't know, Taylor, you got me thinking about this now, because I'm like, is it even a moot point about the parenting for anyone? Because, like, no one's being raised by their parents until, like, they're an adult and they're, like, coming out in society. But it only affected Lady Windermere because her father died, and then she was, like, legitimately an orphan, you know? But, like, if she had just been raised by her father, like, I don't know. I don't think her life would have been, like, that different if she had her mom or not, other than just, like, emotionally, like, being like, wow, I wonder who my mom was and what she was like.
Yeah.
But, like, in terms of, like, the impact of her life, I don't know how much would have changed.
Yeah.
Got me thinking.
Much to think about.
There really is. And kind of related. So, like, the end of the play, we end with multiple big secrets that are still being kept. So I wanted to ask you guys, do you think Mrs. Erlin made the right decision to not tell her daughter who she was? And do you think Lady Windermere made the right decision to not tell her husband? Yeah, because I think we've established that we don't like that Lord Windermere is like, I don't need any more information. She's a whore and a monster. Get her out of here immediately. Like,
we should get that on a shirt.
Yeah, a whore and a monster. And a MILF.
What was the question again?
So we totally
lost everything once you said a whore and a monster.
I'm sorry for distracting from the issue. So I didn't really explain the question very well anyway. So it's like the play ends and we have these big secrets that some people know and some people don't. So I wanted to hear from you guys if you thought Mrs. Erlin made the right decision to not tell. Okay, wait. Now I'm trying to remember how I asked this because it's like like one of those weird maps where you draw all those arrows between characters and I can't remember who knows what.
Did Lady Windermere do the right thing not telling her husband what she did? And also,
yeah, that was the big one I was going to ask too that I forgot the first time. So like,
no,
do you think?
You said it.
Oh, I did. Okay, I don't even remember. I got lost in all these like messy relationships.
Horn monster. Yeah,
horn monster. Okay, so. Should I take notes? Do you think Lady Windermere made the right decision to not tell her husband that she almost left him? Do you think Mrs. Erlin made the right decision to not tell Lady Windermere that she's her mother? And what was the other one? Was that it?
There was another thing you said initially.
Okay, so let's talk about those and then we'll discuss others.
So in terms of Mrs. Erlin and Lady Windermere, I think I don't know. I feel like it's just a completely new. I have a neutral take on it. It's like on one hand, I'm like, well, maybe Lady Windermere wants to know her mother, but on the other hand, Mrs. Erlin, one, she would have a bad reputation. I mean, she probably wouldn't publicly reveal it, I guess, but it would sort of soil this idea of like this perfect godly mother who died tragically young that Lady Windermere has built up in her head. And I guess it's like a quote unquote charitable choice than having her believe that her mother is someone who left her father for another man.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that I'm kind of like, it's up to Mrs. Erlin really whether or not she wants to keep this secret. And I feel like I don't feel strongly any particular way because I understand why she would do it if she chose to do it and why she wouldn't do it, which is what she chose to do. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I totally get it. And like the fact too that and I think she even says this at one point, she's like, if I tell her now, then my sacrifice kind of means nothing, because like you said, Taylor, it's like once, I mean, a lady's reputation once tainted is ruined forever. And because we probably, like Lady Windermere, I think would want to publicly acknowledge her mother, even if that would hurt her reputation. And I think Mrs. Erlin is like, she kind of, it's like, I just realized this. It's like, so Lady Windermere has this ideal of her mother, and kind of her mother has the same thing for her. Cause she's like, I don't want anything, like even the shadow of my reputation to like, ruin this like perfect life that her daughter has. So yeah, no, I know what you mean, Taylor. It's like, I see why she would make either call, and neither of them is really a good option. It's like, in both cases, it's like, well, so like this person maybe deserves to know this, but this other person also deserves to make this decision. Like, yeah. Messy.
I think that if Mrs. Erlin had the intention of like wanting to stay around and be in her adult life, I think it could have been the right decision for them to be like, society be damned, and like move forward together. As the one man always said, I loved how it was like spelled phonetically, demmed.
Demmed, yeah.
Demmed.
Demmed
Every time I was like, this is brilliant. But because of the way the story was going and the choices that she wanted to make for her own life, I was really glad that she just kind of chose to leave it as like, I'm a stranger who did this kind deed for you, and then like not ruin her ideal vision of like who her mother had been. So it was like obviously not an easy choice to make, but I think it was the right one in that situation.
Yeah.
But for Lady Windermere, that's a harder call. I don't know, like between her and her husband, that is.
Yeah, because like seeing the way that he reacts to what happened with Mrs. Erlin, and like, I mean, I guess to give him a little more credit, it's like Mrs. Erlin acts as if she has done the thing that he suspects. It's not like he just makes an assumption. It's like she basically almost comes out and says like, yeah, I was having an affair with somebody. Oops, I left my fan. Okay, bye. As you do. so it's not like he just made that conclusion from nothing, but the fact that he could have all of these experiences where like he was telling his wife, he's like, no, it's not what it looks like. And like the fact that he was defending her to his wife just the day before and being like, you don't understand all the circumstances. And then as soon as he hears this one thing, he's like, that's it. She's irredeemable. Like, you know, so I don't know. I kind of like, I kind of feel like maybe Lady Windermere is right to not tell him. Like, I just don't know if he would be as understanding, even though she would be like, hey, I thought you didn't love me and you were actively cheating on me at the time. Like, I just don't know that he would be able to look past that. So, like, in general, deception is not a good thing in a relationship. But for these two, I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a sort of pros and cons thing. Like, maybe it's you should come clean to your spouse that you almost ran away with someone else, but also said spouse is a misogynist and a snob. And that's just how he was raised to be.
Yeah. I'm like, the more we talk about the necessity between the two of them to lie to each other, I'm like, are they in love?
I know.
They were in love. Like,
that was kind of a follow-up question. That was kind of a follow-up question. It's like, do you think they have a happy marriage? Like, because honestly, it kind of reminds me like the end of Much Ado About Nothing, which is one of my favorite. I was going to say one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. It's just one of my favorite plays in general. I love it. But one of the things that I always think when that play ends is like, no spoilers in case you haven't read it, but like a side character, it's like they get a happy ending with this person where I'm like, I am not convinced that this won't happen again. Like the subplot involving Hero, like I'm not convinced that couldn't happen again. And that's kind of how I feel with this one. It's like, I don't know if I think Lord and Lady Windermere are, I don't know. If you have to tell a lie to make your relationship work, is it maybe not a good relationship? Like,
yeah,
big questions.
Yeah. It's deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's just Victorian things.
It's like when you have to lie to your husband so he won't leave you in shame. Just Victorian things. Like it's like the feminine urge to confess your fan, like as to your husband. Julia, I hope you're taking notes for your memes for this one. Oh, because we've had some quality material here.
Oh yeah.
A whore and a monster. And a MILF.
Yeah, it's just a picture of a woman who got divorced, and it says a whore and a monster.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, so any other thoughts on, I feel like those nebulous ethical questions kind of like took up a lot of what I was thinking about with this play. So I only have like a couple other things.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think like this play's, like if you had to summarize this play's perspective on this, not that you could easily, but like, what do you think this play has to say about love, or like that could be like romantic love or just love in general? Like, do you think it has like a stance? I'd be curious to hear.
I personally think it's a lot about like love as sacrifice for the person that you love in any aspect. Because, you know, I think with any character, you know, like Lord Windermere loves his wife, so he's like willing to put on this facade of like all this shady business in order to protect her. You know, Mrs. Erlin makes the sacrifice of being like, it's me, I'm the scarlet letter whore here.
Yeah.
You know, to make her daughter appear innocent and not involved. I mean, it keeps going, like you know, Lady Windermere will have to sacrifice her child and her life in order to like maybe run away and have a new chance at love. So like all these different sacrifices that are made or could have been made, I think all kind of come back to like who they love and who they care about.
Yeah.
That's like a really good way to put it, Julia, and that's better than what I would have said. Yeah, love is sacrifice, I think, is a really good idea, because even like, while I don't agree with Lord Windermere's decisions, or how he went about keeping the secret with Mrs. Erlin, he still sort of sacrificed his reputation with his wife to keep that secret from her. Could he have been smarter about it? Absolutely. But in his freak mind, he was like, this is the only way. So I definitely agree with what you said, Julia.
Yeah, I think you both said that very well. And yeah, as much as we all have our issues with Lord Windermere, I do think it's worth noting that he was also making a pretty significant sacrifice when he realized that his wife thought what she did, and he felt like he couldn't tell her because that would make the sacrifice meaningless. Like he couldn't just be like, "It's your mom, don't worry about it." Yeah. Yes, he should have come up with a more convincing story, or just not acted like such a suspicious. It's just, I guess it should be a comfort that he's such a bad liar, because maybe that makes him a more honest person in the future. But yeah, it's like, I do think that is worth noting, that like he also had to sacrifice some things. Yeah. And I think also like sometimes with like the some of his comedies, Oscar Wilde's comedies, it's like when they have these relationships where it's like, what is this play saying about like marriage or like romantic love? And with this one, it's kind of different, because the marriage is obviously questionable. I don't know. There's like it's messy. But like we do see these examples of other kinds of love that are really strong and really selfless. And also you could argue that Lord Darlington and Lady Windermere, that their love might have been true as well. Like, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just think that's interesting. And then also, so we've talked about this, I think, in tandem with other things, but what do you think about what this play says about women's place in society and women's expectations, women's relationship with men, power dynamics, any of that? Because I think there's a lot to say, which is one of the reasons I love Oscar Wilde's plays, because he's almost always on the side of like, man, sucks to be a woman.
And for some reason, in Picture of Dorian Gray, we don't know what happened there.
I know. Like, what was that? What was that, Oscar? I say like we're best buddies. I call him Oscar, my friend.
Oscar, come on.
Someone like cut him in, like a woman cut him in line at the pub, and he's like, you know what?
Just for that, Sybil? Like,
it's on. He starts writing.
Yeah. And that's my answer.
Yeah. No, I think the play had really interesting things to say about gender dynamics and like the expectations that are placed on women. I'm tempted to just pull out another quote. I don't know if we're too early for quotes.
We're almost to quotes.
Okay.
If you'd like to share early.
There's a great quote we'll share soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like he's he just seems to be kind of shining a light on like, oh, look at these double standards here, because I mean the whole premise of the beginning is everyone is like, honey, your husband's cheating on you, and like not one person is like, Lord Darlington's reputation has been tarnished forever. Everyone's like, oh, poor lady. Oh, I said Darlington, didn't I? Yeah. Lord Windermere's reputation has been tarnished forever. Everyone's just like, oh, poor Lady Windermere. And it's like, this is the man you think is actively doing this. Why are you paying attention to the victim instead of shaming the perpetrator, as far as you know? Like those kind of things compared to what, happened to Miss Erlin and everything. So it's just...
Yeah. And a lot of people are telling her like, oh, that's just how men are, or like, this is just what a marriage is. It's fine.
Yeah, take him to Europe. You'll be over it in a little while. Like,
and I guess that is something to admire about Lady Windermere, is that she doesn't want to take it. Like, she's hurt by the idea of her husband cheating on her, but she's also like, I don't have to take this. I'm great. And also just how society treats divorced women or women who run away with another man, or a woman who's caught in like the rooms of another man, and everyone's like, to quote you, Kara, she's a whore and a monster. But you know, everyone's like, oh, you know, Lord Windermere, men, am I right?
Yeah. I think that the play is like so sympathetic to both Lady Windermere and Mrs. Erlin, even though, as we've discussed, Mrs. Erlin is not like a completely easy character to sympathize with. Because even though she's been through a lot and the things like the judgment she got is like not fair, she also makes some of her own choices that are maybe a little questionable. So yeah, I think that this is like a really like amazingly astute play to be written by a male playwright and to be so clear-eyed about what it was like to be a woman. And like Oscar Wilde was, of course, a gay man, and so I wonder how much of his understanding is based on like not obviously not the same experience, but like kind of a similar feeling, like a not even a second class citizen, because he lost his life because of homophobia. But like I wonder how much of his understanding and sympathy for what women were going through is because he knew what it was like to be treated in somewhat similar ways. I hope that made sense. I'm not like trying to equate those things in every way, but
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the reasons why he does have such wonderfully developed female characters, why he is so like understanding and sympathetic about like what women of the time went through, is because he was familiar with what it was like to be viewed.
I mean, it reminds me of West Side Story, where the movie itself was made by 3 gay men. You have Stephen Sondheim, the director, and I think the person who wrote the book for the script for the movie. And you can see sort of elements of the interracial couple play out, and you're like, I can see maybe why, you know, 3 gay men in like the 1960s would sympathize with this story of 2 people who can't be together because society won't let them.
Yeah. Very succinctly said. Much better than I did, Taylor. Thank you. I'd also point out it's very easy to completely change your identity enough that no one recognizes you. Yeah, like I mean, I guess in Mrs. Erlin's case, it's been quite a few years, but still a little odd.
She's lying about her age.
That's true. She always lies about her age. Some of these people must have known Mrs. Erlin before she left her husband. Yeah, especially if she apparently has aged so well that she could be like, I'm 29. Like, do you look the exact same? Like, I don't know, maybe she dyed her hair or something.
I'm thinking like some horrible Victorian Botox.
Oh, God.
Horrifying.
A nightmare to even think about that. Okay, should we... Any other things we want to talk about? Characters, themes, conundrums.
I just wanted to talk about something that I love from my edition of Lady Windermere's Fan, is that they have the people who were in the cast of the first performance listed with it. And I just wanted to, you know, share that if any of you pick up this edition, you can find out just who played them, and I think that's really cool. So I'm just going to go with Lord Windermere, Lady Windermere, and Mrs. Erlin. So Lord Windermere was played by Mr. George Alexander, Lady Windermere by Miss Lily Hanbury, and Mrs. Erlin, Miss Marion Terry. And just fun fact.
That is fun.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I've read a lot of things set in this period, because there's a couple of them I'm like, I think I know that name. Thank you for sharing that, Taylor. That's great. All right, should we finish off with quotes? Because it's an Oscar Wilde work, so we know there's going to be a ton of quotes.
Yes.
Who wants to start off?
I don't care. I have like a shorter one and a longer one I want to share. So
whichever one you like.
Okay, I'll do my short one that I liked. One of those nice little quippy Oscar Wilde moments. Ideals are dangerous things. Realities are better. They wound, but they're better. I love that one.
Yeah.
And then the one that I wanted to share when we were talking about gender, that I actually like literally just took a screenshot of. Since I was
all of mine are photos. Yeah.
was from Lady Windermere. And she says, Arthur, don't talk so bitterly about any woman. I don't think now that people can be divided into the good and the bad as though they were two separate races or creations. What are called good women may have terrible things in them, mad moods of recklessness, assertion, jealousy, sin. Bad women, as they are termed, may have in them sorrow, repentance, pity, sacrifice. The quote goes on, but it went to the next page, so I cut it off there. But yeah. And it also makes me think of Cuckoo Song, Kara. So just the line about the cake.
I love it.
That's a really good quote. I had that one marked too.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
So the one I have is from Mrs. Erlin, actually.
Ooh.
And it's when Lord Windermere is like, "Get out of here, you hussy. You're gross. Leave." And she says, "I suppose, Windermere, you would like me to retire into a convent or become a hospital nurse or something of that kind, as people do in silly modern novels. That is stupid of you, Arthur. In real life, we don't do such things, not as long as we have any good looks left, at any rate. No, what consoles one nowadays is not repentance, but pleasure. Repentance is quite out of date. And besides, if a woman really repents, she has to go to a bad dressmaker, otherwise no one believes in her. And nothing in the world would induce me to do that."
Yeah.
What an icon.
I love that one. So one of the things I love about like reading plays, in addition to seeing them, is like sometimes it's the combination of like the lines and the stage direction. Because one of the ones I saved is a conversation like at the beginning between Lady Windermere and Lord Darlington, where there's just all that angst and pining. And it's like it starts off funny and then it gets like very poignant because he says, "I couldn't help it. I can resist everything except temptation." And she says, "You have the modern affectation of weakness." Lord Darlington, looking at her, "It's only an affectation, Lady Windermere." And I'm like, I love you a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. Listen, we are not married. We are allowed to be charmed by Lord Darlington as much as we want.
Right. It's not unethical at all. It's fine. Yeah. So, Julia, did you share your other one already?
Yeah, I did. Although I had also saved that I can resist anything except.
Isn't that great? It's like, and it's such a funny line, but then you keep reading and it's like, oh.
Yeah. So good.
One of the ones by Lady Windermere that I think is really, this is like what we were talking about, where everybody's like, "That's just what husbands do," and she's like, "No, like that shouldn't be." She says, "London is full of women who trust their husbands. One can always recognize them. They look so thoroughly unhappy."
Yeah. I do like, I mean, this, I didn't save this for the quote itself as much as like, this is what I felt like was the heart of the theme of the play, you know? So I screenshotted that one line from Lord Windermere where he's talking to, what's her mom's name?
Mrs. Erlin.
I was like, it's gone. And I don't know what she said before. I should have not cropped it as small. But he tells her, "A mother's love means devotion, unselfishness, sacrifice. What could you know of such things?" And I was like, little do you know, Lord Windermere.
Yeah.
We got sacrifice aplenty over here. Unselfishness? Ooh, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I saved that one just because I was like, I see what you did there.
I think like one of the reasons that last act or scene is so impressive is because everything works on so many levels, because as the audience, you know all the secrets and everybody else only knows some of them. And so you're just watching like, yeah. Well, one that I thought was really interesting, and this is kind of like when we were talking about Lady Windermere almost running away with Lord Darlington and how we were all kind of like, maybe you should have thought of your kid, but also I understand why you did this. She says, "It is he who has broken the bond of marriage, not I. I only break its bondage." Like, she's like, he did it first, so I am not responsible for it.
That's a good plan.
That's a really good one.
Let's see. Oh, another one from her. She has a lot of good lines.
She does.
She says, "Go back to my husband, Mrs. Erlin. He belongs to you and not to me. I suppose he is afraid of a scandal. Men are such cowards. They outrage every law of the world and are afraid of the world's tongue."
Mm-hmm. That was so good.
Yeah, it's a good one. Do you have any more, Taylor? I'm sorry, I keep talking.
No, I shared my one. I guess my other favorite line would just be, "Yes, Mama."
It is pretty iconic.
Did you say you'd go to Australia? Like,
Yes, Mama.
okay, I did love, this is like one of the only things I really liked in that conversation where it's like just the dudes like talking to each other. Some of their lines were actually funny. Lord Windermere says, well, that is no business of yours, is it, Cecil? He says, none. That is why it interests me. My own business always bores me to death. I prefer other people.
I did almost say that one.
I read that and I'm like, Taylor would probably say she like just because you always like start off our live shows with like, well, I liked the mess.
Yeah. So true.
This is why I read. I'm too much of a goody two-shoes to get into my own mess.
Yeah. And then this one is like so famous. It's like, did I even need to screenshot it? But I did. But that is we are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars.
Yeah.
That's the one that I put in my intro, and that's the one that's on my mug, and I just like love it so much. I love Lord Darlington, that like hopeless romantic sad boy who's like,
I love it too.
He just left Europe. Like he's like, he told her.
It's like, okay, peace. Oh, what a man.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm almost done. See, you can tell this is like one of my favorite plays. So this is during Mrs. Erlin's speech where she's talking about like her selflessness, like her selfless act. She says, no, as far as I am concerned, let your wife cherish the memory of this dead, stainless mother. Why should I interfere with her illusions? I find it hard enough to keep my own. I lost one illusion last night. I thought I had no heart. I find I have, and a heart doesn't suit me, Windermere. Somehow it doesn't go with modern dress. It makes one look old. And it spoils one's career at critical moments. Like, I just feel like that's a really good encapsulation of her character because she's so flippant about it, but it's like she does have a heart, though. Mm-hmm. I love that.
That's a good moment.
Yeah. And when she also tells him, this is the same conversation after that, like really good. She's like, then I'd have to go to a bad dressmaker and I'm not going to do that. She says, no, I'm going to pass entirely out of your two lives. My coming into them has been a mistake. I discovered that last night. Lord Windermere says a fatal mistake. And she says, smiling, almost fatal, because of course she knows that she saved his wife. This is like when everything works on multiple levels and he's like, what a monster. And you're like, you're wrong. He says, I'm sorry now, I did not tell my wife the whole thing at once. She says, I regret my bad actions. You regret your good ones. That is the difference between us. I'm like, you tell him. Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of my monologue on this play. Thank you. Thank you for watching.
This will be me the time that I pick a Shakespeare play for our month. And I'm hosting, I'm like, and here's my favorite quote, and here's my favorite quote, and here's my favorite quote.
I am so ready for you to run a Shakespeare discussion, Julia. Like,
yes.
I'm so excited.
I want to pick the right play.
Taylor's done one. We could all maybe think about doing a Shakespeare play.
Yeah. And then Taylor needs to pick an Oscar Wilde work.
That's right.
That's true.
We should do like a bonus theme round where Taylor picks an Oscar Wilde and me and Julia pick a Shakespeare. I'd love that.
If you want to pick, I mean, not putting any ideas into your head, but I have been really wanting to reread Macbeth because Daniel Craig and Ruth Negga are starring in the version that's on Broadway. And yeah. So the tickets are super expensive. So I'm still on the fence about whether or not Chris and I are going to go, but I'm still like, ooh, the temptation.
Yeah.
Who else?
Nina votes with Julia hosting a Shakespeare. She says, I love it when Julia lets her Shakespeare nerd out.
It's what I do. No, but who? Okay, hold on. My mom was literally just telling me something about Macbeth. Who else is in it?
If it's the
Amber Gray. She told me that Amber Gray is playing Banquo.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm obsessed because apparently she auditioned for Lady Macduff, and I was like, interesting choice, but also would be amazing. And then Banquo. Oh.
Yeah, I still have to see the Denzel Washington movie version.
I do too. I need to see it very badly. But
I love Macbeth with all my heart.
Having a woman play Banquo is like top 10 best directorial decisions I've ever seen in a Shakespeare play. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Macbeth is so good. That's another one where I'm like, man, I love the mess in this.
Yeah, like you should pick it because I clearly just picked one of my favorites to reread, so I think it's allowed.
Yeah.
So you guys got a sneak peek of some possible things to come. Okay, any last thoughts on Lady Windermere's fan before we end with our next announcement? Julia, that'll be yours. So
Yes. I don't have
final
any
thoughts on the
other...
play. Anyone in the chat have final thoughts on the play?
My final thought on the play is I'm just more excited to read and continue read Oscar Wilde plays.
Yeah.
You have achieved my goal.
Yeah.
So bad. I love him, obviously. I'm kind of a fan. You guys might have noticed. Like Julia saying, you guys should read a Shakespeare. It might be fun. Like,
you might like it.
Just a crazy thought.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone in the chat is saying anything, but I can share our next picks if we're ready. I don't have them here because I'm at my parents' house. We are doing a twofer. We are going to read A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, and then Clybourne Park by Bruce Norris, which is like a sequel play. So they're both plays. They're both short. Yeah. No spoilers, but A Raisin in the Sun is a reread for me, and it's a 5-star play. I love it. So I'm very excited to get a taste of like its continuation, I guess. Yeah.
Very cool.
That's it.
So I think that is everything. As usual, all the links we talked about will be in the description. Be sure to follow Julia and Taylor. I know that you guys probably already do. Thank you for discussing this play with us and being so patient as I just like yell my feelings for like an hour and a half.
I love it.
Yeah.
And keep an eye out for the announcement for our next one. I don't know exactly when that'll be, but we'll probably announce it at the last second. It's like a pop-up book club. You never know when we're gonna be.
I'm gonna put my money on March 27th, but we'll see.
Yeah. Could be, especially because they're short. Might be March 27th. So possible date. Okay, thank you guys, and we will see you next time.